morning and welcome to Morning Java, brought to you as always by Get Go Cafe and Market, where right now they're doing the smokestack pulled pork sandwich, Dale.
This thing is so good, it gave me the hiccups.
Gave you the hiccups.
It gave me the hiccups.
You still got them.
They smoke it for 16 hours.
Excuse Dale if he hiccups during this session because he just got done eating a smokestack.
I ate it so fast I got the hiccups.
That happens, man. But it's that good. Get you some at Get Go. But here, let's talk about Mike Tomlin's contract extension. Dale, you wrote about that for this week, and it's become a huge thing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers typically extend their coaches' contracts with 2 years remaining on the deal. And the last time that they didn't do that was Bill Cowher in 2005. We saw what happened. Cowher went out, won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, he wants even more money. And in 2006, after that season, they were done. The coupling broke up.
Yeah.
So, you look at the situation. I know everybody wants to say, well, Mike Tomlin's only won 3 playoff games in this decade. As I broke down on the site, you could say that about a lot of guys who are getting paid more money than Tomlin. If you look at him compared to the rest of his peers in the league, not named Bill Belichick, he stacks up very well against those guys.
Yeah.
John Harbaugh, for example, has won 1 playoff game since winning the Super Bowl. That's almost a decade.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, who's had very successful seasons, has won 3 playoff games this decade, the same number as Tomlin. Sean Payton, I believe, has 2.
Yeah.
You go on down the list. If you have a good football coach, you stick with a good football coach.
And how many times have we seen teams veer off the track? Look at the Giants. Tom Coughlin was a guy that he was a proven winner. He won the Super Bowl. Yeah, he gave you some bad years, but he eventually would rally your team and get you back. And then as soon as they dumped Tom Coughlin, they've been a fire dumpster ever since. And you look at teams that stick with their coaches, they eventually find ways to win. The Steelers were in a very similar predicament with Bill Cowher. In the late 90s, people were writing that he should be, why did you extend this guy? Why would you give this guy? He had 2 losing seasons at the end of the 90s and then did make the playoffs in 2000. And then they extended him, and then all of a sudden you see him build more of a team. They win a Super Bowl, and the rest was history. But if you get rid of a good coach in the middle of them trying to figure out things with their team, you're going to miss the opportunity to see that coach bring some merit to this team and actually win the Super Bowl.
Never fire somebody unless you have a pretty good idea who you're going to hire to replace them. So, Chris, you wrote the latest classroom was on Stephon Tuitt.
Yes.
Who is a big part of what the Steelers are planning to do, not only last year, but this year as well.
Yes.
If you look at the strength of this defense, it is that defensive line. When you look at those 300-pounders that they have up front, they are a load, and they are the best part of the team on defense, for sure. People, I don't know if they quite understand how good he is. If you talk to other NFL coaches, they will tell you that they game plan around Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward. The sacks haven't been there, though.
Right. And that's the biggest deal, because when you look at Stephon Tuitt, you recognize how athletic he is and how talented he is. But then you look at his stat sheet and you say, why has he never had more than 6.5 sacks in a season? And that was years ago now. He had about, I think, 5.5 last year. And everyone's still looking for, because now in this upcoming season, in 2019, he's going to make the 3rd most money on the Steelers roster as far as salary cap hits. So everyone's wondering, is this the year that he's finally going to become a superstar the way that they're paying him? And here's my reasoning as to why I don't think that's that far of a step to take. Because when you look at Tuitt's production and the way that he produces, one, he draws double teams almost regularly on a game. Like you said, teams plan around him. You see an all-pro center and an all-pro guard double teaming him, and still sometimes it not working. But on top of that, what Tuitt has faced several injuries that have sort of put him to the background on certain occasions. But he's also been a player that's fallen victim to the secondary and the coverage packages behind him, giving off easy targets for when he does get that pressure up A gap or B gap. The quarterback, like Phillip Rivers against Keenan Allen, as I broke down in Carter's classroom, can quickly dump it off and get rid of it. What the Steelers are doing right now, they've invested in the coverage linebackers in Bush and Barron. They've invested in a better cornerback in Steven Nelson to pair with Joe Hayden. And they now have experienced safeties in their system in Edmonds and Davis. This is probably the best coverage situation that they've had since the days of Troy Polamalu when he was in his prime, because of the way that they've invested into the secondary. I think that's going to boost to it, and that's going to give him the opportunity to have more time to get to the quarterback and finish plays. I mean, and you've talked to him just like I've talked to him during the season. There's been times where he has been this close, or he'd sack a guy and there'd be a defensive holding in the secondary, and it wipes out what he does. And if those plays all added up, he might have had a couple of double-digit sack seasons by now.
Yeah, and if you look at it, he's still just a 26-year-old player.
26.
If you look at when Cam Hayward really started to take off, it was in that year 26.
Right. I agree entirely, and that's why Stephon Tuitt, my opinion, he is a guy that people can look to leap up this year and make that huge step to boost the defense.
So our friend Dave Damashek from NFL.com, of course he's a Pittsburgher, put together a list today of his top 20. He did 26. I don't know why he did 26, but he did 26. The greatest positions in any sport in North American history for each franchise,
All right.
and for a number of different franchises. And so there's obviously some Pittsburgh people or Pittsburgh teams represented on there.
Right.
Number one, and the players have to be either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, so that makes a big difference. But number one was the Lakers' center position,
Which is
where you have
that's
George
obvious.
Mikan, Will Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Shaq,
and Anthony Davis hasn't even played yet, and somehow he's on the list.
Yeah, I don't get that, but the first four guys are legit.
Oh yeah, I mean, you say Shaq, Wilton, Kareem. That's all you needed.
Yeah,
You didn't need the rest.
But the Penguins come in on the second. It's at the center position where they have Ron Francis, Sidney Crosby, and Evgeny Malkin.
And you forgot a really big name there, Mario Lemieux.
Oh yeah, he just put 66.
He put 66.
He put
but we all
66.
knew what that meant.
Yeah.
You know,
I just read over it there.
No, it's but
yeah.
But that's one of the best positions in the history.
Absolutely.
Of sports.
The Steelers come in on this list. They actually have two entries on this list. They come in at 21st, and that's with the center position. That's Mike Webster, Dermontti Dawson, and Marquise Pouncey. He's assuming that Marquise Pouncey is going to be a Hall of Famer eventually. He's on that track.
Yeah, he certainly is. I mean, the way that he's played, he's been consistent for his whole career. He had some injury struggles in the beginning, but he's been such a consistent,
He's made a bunch of Pro Bowls.
force.
He's made a bunch of All-Pro teams.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the other one is at 25 at wide receiver, where he has Swan Stallworth, Hines Ward with a question mark beside it,
Right.
and then Antonio Brown.
I mean, but as much as people want to be mad at Antonio Brown, he's still one of the best producers of the position in the history of the league, not just the team.
I tweeted him back, though, and I said, what about the Steelers' cornerback position?
Man, you're right on it, because that's exactly where I was going to go with Mel Blount, and you got Rod Woodson. Those two alone, you don't need Butler. Forget him. You can just put those two out there. You're not completing any passes.
But
behind
Jack Butler had 52 interceptions. Between the three of those guys, there are over 150 interceptions.
That's insane.
That's a pretty good number.
And that's putting everyone else in the background right there. I mean, because you're looking at the Steelers' history. But I mean, oh man, I'm just so blown away, because I've always thought, if the Steelers' wide receiver position, if you were to take any wide receiver group in the history of any franchise and made a top 5, could you outdo the Steelers, who could do Swan Stallworth, Ward, Brown, and then your choice of like Santonio Holmes or Lewis Lips or any one of those, anyone else?
Pirates shortstop. Honus Wagner, Sammy Khalifa.
Think about that. Okay, that's very fair. That's very fair. I like that.